Hey everyone. Today I will be doing some work on my foam roller. Going to be stretching and just trying to work tissues, um, soften them up, create more space in the joints, um, and yeah, just do some good self care here. Um, Starting out here with the um, right shoulder, switching to the left. Basically, what I'm trying to do here is just get a good stretch, nice deep stretch into the chest, front of the shoulder. Um, Tends to be an area that gets pretty tight on me. In my experience, it gets pretty tight on most people. Kind of the nature of the way we use our bodies. Lots of those muscles in the front on the chest there, front of the shoulder, get get a lot more action than the opposing muscles on the opposing side, the back side. Um, so yeah, I find it important, whether I'm doing this or working on someone else, important to try to lengthen those chest and front shoulder muscles as much as possible. So some of the tension can come out of the muscles on the backside, which tend to be the ones that are really aching and bothering people. Um, so um, throughout this process, I will not be like, adhering to the routine or any kind of predetermined layout or series of movements or stretches. Much like my massage work, I tend to not tend to. I do just go where work with what the body is indicating it needs. Um, as such, I tend to start with my shoulders, as I did here, or perhaps my abdomen, abdomen or hip flexor area. Pretty much anything along the front is a good candidate for trying to stretch and lengthen. Just because, like I said, those muscles on the front side tend to be overused in proportion to the muscles on the back side. and they kind of get too tight, too. It's almost like they're too well trained. Like if a person was a someone who does resistance, excuse me, someone who does resistance training, um, and they only worked like they only did push-ups and bench press and pec deck and all the chest movements where the chest is the target muscle. Um, they did that frequently, but then didn't do any back work, didn't do any pull-ups, didn't do any rows, didn't do any rear delt work. Um, just no back work and all chest work. Um, it's sort of what humans do, just as the nature of how our bodies are designed and the type of tasks that we do, particularly in modern society, where we're not really required to do a lot of pulling, but are required to do a lot of not necessarily pushing, but just work that brings our arms in front of us and shortens those chest muscles, amongst other things. Anyway, so I don't have a routine. I just go uh, where it feels like is the right place to go. So um, a lot of what I'm doing here is I feel a spot that I kind of want to work at, work on, work out. Um, and so I once I find that spot, so like right now I'm usually feeling it like in the somewhere in the shoulder joint. And so what I'm doing here is like kind of like um, stabilizing certain areas and keeping them stationary, and then kind of like into doing some like internal like pushing, contracting type of stuff to um, manipulate the area I'm trying to get at, um, kind of like by like using like internal forces to work loose the tissue. Um, so yeah, a little difficult to explain, but it's just like finding out this. That's why, like in this scenario right here, my forearm has been very stationary and just fixed. Uh, I'm using that stationary position of the forearm to then uh, manipulate my body around it, such that basically the muscles and tendons and whatnot are like forced to move in a way that they typically would not be forced to move in. So like forces like a different um like the details of the articulation end up being different. And so it can help to like work things loose because basically like different tissues end up, or I should say tissues end up um, coming pushing against each other, or working in a way that like is counter to how they would work during like a more normal movement. Um, and so you might also notice that I have not actually rolled on this thing at all. Um, haven't used a rolling motion. Um, performed a roll. Performed a roll. Um, feel like the the term for this um, piece of equipment, that term being foam roller, is probably a name that maybe ends up doing a disservice to, I guess, if not the product, then the people who purchase the product. Um, nothing, nothing. There's nothing wrong with rolling, um, uh, but from either conversations I've had with others or just viewing others on YouTube or wherever, using a foam roller, more often than not, they are rolling on it, rolling out their spine or rolling out their quads, um, adductors, insides of their legs, whatever type of area. Like usually it is a rolling motion. Um, the rolling ability of it as a cylinder is being implemented as the modality. Um, like I said, I don't think there's a problem with that per se. But it's sort of like barely kind of tapping into the possibilities um, that the foam roller really uh, facilitates. And so I find it more useful as a tool uh, to use to press into soft tissues, to jockey around. I'm doing here, like if where my thumb is there, it's like I'm trying to work that loose and using pressure from the foam roller, dig in there while I then moved on now. But I was using my leg to make those tissues move around more internally, and then as those tissues are being manipulated through the movement of my leg, the foam roller is pressing on the area, uh, and then like it's allowing the foam roller to kind of um, move deeper and deeper into the area and work the tissue harder as I manipulate my leg and or move my leg and manipulate that spot that I have the pressure on um, via the foam roller. Um, so yeah, I don't really roll on it. I more just use it to apply pressure, elevate a lot of um, the stuff I'm doing, like that stretch through the front of the chest and front of the shoulder. That can be done on the floor or a lot of places. Really, it could be done like on a bed. Um, like a person could be kneeling on the floor next to their bed and then use their bed, and that would provide, depending on how tall the bed is and how tall the person is. Um, but assuming those things are lining up the way they would need to, a person could actually get quite deep using a method like that, where the height of the bed allows for quite a deep stretch through the front of the chest. But um, I don't have a bed; I sleep on the floor, so not really an option for me in that sense. I have other tall things I could use, I suppose. Anyways, my point was that like the stretch could be done just off the floor, but having the foam roller to elevate facilitates a deeper stretch. And broadly speaking, having an elevated surface to stretch like the chest in front of the shoulder will facilitate a deeper stretch, generally speaking. I moved on to my legs here, trying to do a few things when I do this. Part of it's just like sitting on my uh, foot and ankle, getting a good stretch through the top of the foot there, top of the toes, getting a nice flex in like the plantar area, the bottom of the foot. Yeah, this is really kind of like stretch through the top of the foot and the front of the shin, stretch the quad, stretch the hip flexor a little bit, not too much in this. I am feeling this in the hip to some extent. And I really like this particular movement. Feels really nice. My feet have been a little more sore than normal because I purchased some shoes that are like waterproof type winter. Um, I'd say boots, but they're not really tall enough to be a proper. Well, I guess boots can be low tops too. They're I guess they're boots, but they're not very tall. But they're waterproof, and they were advertised as barefoot. I don't remember if I checked the sole thickness or not, but I'm thinking I probably didn't or couldn't find it or something because they're too thick. The foot feel is minimal. I'm not getting a lot of good foot feel. Um, and so my toes and feet have been sore, kind of cramping more than normal. I haven't had to wear those shoes in probably a week or more at this point because it hasn't been snowing enough or been like melting enough where there's puddles everywhere. Um, so I've been grateful for that because I don't like these shoes. I like that they're waterproof. That's why I got them. That's the only reason I got them because everything I have is very much not waterproof at this point, at least. Um, so the waterproof is nice, but my feet are taking a beating. So I've been spending some extra time lately just trying to get my feet stretched out and um, kind of undo the damage that's happening from wearing these goofy shoes. I would say the shoes I have are like probably fine for um, someone who's like transitioning in to minimalist shoes or barefoot shoes. Like if they're coming out of um, athletic sneakers or something like that, like ready to transition away from those, or something even more minimalistic, either like Vans slip-ons are usually kind of what I think of as like a something that's approaching minimalistic, but not quite there. Um, I would say these winter shoes I have are like slightly more minimalistic than like a Vans slip-on, at least for foot feel. Maybe not the other areas, although maybe too. And the rise is pretty similar. There's no rise. Toe box is probably comparable. So yeah, I'd say it's like the probably like the next step, like relatively small increment from a Vans slip-on. Um, so for that reason, I think like the foot feel is probably good for like somebody who's working their way toward minimalistic, super minimalistic footwear. But I'm there and have been there for a while, so it's just doing me more harm than anything. Not that it's a great deal of harm, just it's uncomfortable. Anyways, so this is stretching like the hip flexors. Um, like I said, I'm mostly a lot of focus here is just to try to stretch, lengthen, and create space. Um, let me back up. Stretch and lengthen the muscles on the front side of the body from head to toe, and then by so doing, create space in the joints on those front sides so that the tension that's running through the backside, which is where we tend to feel the discomfort, is on the backside. And those muscles that are too lengthened. Um, but like a traditional type of massage approach is um, okay, the muscle hurts. I work that muscle. So typically, someone goes in for a massage. They say, "My my back hurts. My between my shoulder blades hurts. Around my shoulder blades hurts. My neck hurts. My traps, tops of my traps hurt. My upper traps hurt. My traps hurt. Low back hurts. Um, yeah, pretty much anything from like on the back side of the body, the posterior side, like from the top of the head to the tailbone, essentially. Um, this is what the vast majority of massage clients who have specific complaints. Some people don't. Some people just want massage. For those who have specific complaints, aches and pains that are bothering them, it would typically, they're more often than not, majority of them will indicate that their back, neck, or shoulders hurt, one, the other, or one, two, or all three of them. And that they would like that pain to go away or that discomfort to go away. And so the typical massage approach is to work those areas directly, um, which there's a variety of factors, but to some extent or another will feel nice while it's happening. Um, but as far as like a therapeutic result, that tends to not be long lasting. Um, in my personal experience, and then having communicated with plenty of others about it, working those ache and pain muscles on the backside, it tends to make them feel better for the period of time that they're being rubbed and worked on, and not much longer. Um, I don't know if I've ever received a massage where the therapist working on the muscles in my back in order to relieve the pain in the muscles in my back has actually produced that result after getting up off of the table. And that's simply because, like, those muscles on the backside really aren't the culprit. They're not the source, not the origin. Origin's on the front side. So without addressing the muscles on the front side and and doing something to lengthen and provide that space, it's going to be difficult for the muscles on the backside to ever really um, get what they need to facilitate the reduction in pain. So, um, anytime that my back hurts, it's usually going to be my. Actually, it's not really my back, I guess. It's usually more for me the neck. Um, Usually, like the sides, the lateral portions of the neck, typically, not the front of the back so much. The neck, the tops of the shoulders, like the traps, and the way that and the connection to the neck, very related there. Um, Around the shoulder blades, the inside edge, medial edge of the shoulder blade. Um, and maybe like uh, the external rotators. Those are typically the areas that will be bothering or be bothering me the most. Um, and my approach when those areas hurt is to do like exactly what I'm doing here. Well, maybe not exactly move for move, but exactly in the sense that it's I'm emphasizing just getting the front side stretched out. And that will do, like, if it's a choice between just working, like if I come in or I come in, I have pain where I said tops of the traps, the neck, shoulder blade. Um, and I have to choose. I'm not saying I do, nor does anyone, but just to illustrate the point. If it's choosing between only working the muscles on the front side and working the tissues and whatnot on the front side to make the pain in my upper back and neck and shoulders go away, or choice a choice between that or a choice between doing like what I was saying, the typical massage approach was, which is to spend well, in this case, it would be all of the time working on the muscles in the back. I could only choose one. I work the front or I work the back. To address the pain I feel that is more so on the back, I would always choose to work the front. Every time I would choose to work the front. This is not to say that I don't spend any time working the muscles on the back. I do. It's just probably ending up in more often than not, like in a session like this. Um, I will probably spend 10 to 20% of the time directly, in, directly using the foam roller or stretching or whatever, the muscles on the backside, and spend 80 to 90% of the time addressing the muscles and tissues on the front side. Um, and I think that is a approach that would be the better choice for pretty much anyone. I can't think of um, I don't know how many different people I've massaged at this point, probably thousands. Um, I cannot think of anyone I've ever worked on uh, who like categorically went against the grain on this. Like, it's just not really a thing. I'm sure it's possible. I'm not sure. I suppose it's probably possible that someone could maybe have some unique kind of circumstance where um, this general rule wouldn't apply very well. Um, it's very conceivable that that person could exist, but I've never encountered them, and like I've never encountered anyone who um, doesn't fit into this paradigm of just like uh, needing attention on the anterior side of the body to address aches and pains wherever they may be. So a lot of folks, probably like uh, the two most common areas, I would say, if I'm being very, very, very broad when I'm applying or using the term area. Um, People tend to want the complex of the upper back, shoulders, neck from the backside, um, like the posterior portion of the shoulders. Um, that is probably the most common thing people want to have addressed. Very close second, um, well, not very close second per se, but um, what is almost certainly the second place. And I guess the reason I said very close is because it's often the uh, an additional factor for people with the upper back, neck, shoulders thing. Um, Probably approximately half of people will then also want to address low back. Um, I think some of them will feel like it's tied into the upper, and some of them kind of feel it as two different issues. I'm not sure. Um, but the low back stuff is more of the same in terms of that paradigm, front to back. So typically, people who have low back, like if low back is their main concern, like they didn't bring up the shoulder stuff, they didn't bring up any other areas, they just want to address their low back pain. Um, that requires getting the muscles in order to really address the low back pain. The muscles on the front of the hip complex need to be stretched and lengthened. And there needs to be, like I said, space provided in the anterior side of the hip structure. So that means stretching muscles that a lot of people struggle to stretch on their own. That's what I'm doing here a lot of the time. Anytime I'm coming up on my knee, I'm looking to stretch. Most of the leg or lower half stretching I'm doing is either stretching hip flexor or quad, more to like upper portion of the quad. Um, Anyways, so to get to address the low back requires really working on the front of the hip. However, the body is very synergistic. It's rare. I mean, I don't know that I've ever experienced someone who um, can have like for example, like in the instance of low back pain, like it's it's more or less impossible to address it, like just addressed by just working on the low back only. It's also unlikely that even though working on the front of the hips will provide a lot of um, relief, it's unlikely that like it'll be possible to get the most relief by only working on the front of the hips and the low back. Um, Pretty much without fail, that tension is going to run elsewhere. It's going to run up into the shoulders. It's going to run up into the neck. It's going to run up into the top of the head, even the scalp, the skull, cranium. It'll be running down the quads. It'll run through the knee, the lower leg, the foot, especially. And like the foot, like there's so much that comes from the feet because most people wear shoes that don't allow their feet to function the way they're meant to. And so the joints in their feet don't articulate the way they're meant to. When they wear shoes that are basically, most shoes are like some form of cast that don't allow the joints to move, either at all or enough. And so the articulation that should be taking place in the feet can't. So it has, so the body has to compensate for that. And so that's where a lot of shoulder and low back pain comes from, is people wearing shoes that don't allow their feet to function um, naturally, quote unquote. Um, so um, typically, I have to do a lot. Typically, I have to do a lot of work on someone's feet and ankles to get their low back pain to subside, to get the things I need to release in order to facilitate that low back pain relief. Um, which is to say, it's all connected. Um, I conceptualize people's um, like muscular, not the skeletal system, more so just the muscular system. Um, to me, it feels like holiday lights, Christmas type lights, string lights. Um, they get tangled up really easily, especially if they're like a bunch of strings daisy chained together, plugged into one another, and then they're just put away carelessly without trying to roll them up or anything, and uh, get super tangled. And like they can be untangled, but it's imperative for the person doing the untangling to like work with the lights as they are, like as the untangler, the untangler doesn't get to decide how the lights come apart. Like the lights are in a specific arrangement, and like the knots aren't gonna come apart just any old way. Like it's possible to go after a knot, and like it seems like it's coming apart, but actually all the stuff that like the different layers of the knot once pulled apart just like went elsewhere and like added a layer to some other knot in the string. Um, because the in this case the untangler isn't working with the lights as they are. And so that's what to me what bodywork is a string of lights that can come untangled, but it has to be worked with how it is, not with like how the massage therapist wants it to be. It's imperative to like feel what's going on, find those connections like in the Christmas lights and pull them apart, and then go in. Like if the Christmas lights are plugged one string into the next, what I do is I go in and I find the place where that hard plug is, where that daisy chain is, and pull it apart. And then I figure out how how I can start to pull out the knots from that daisy chain point. So that's why it's critical to um, not like confine oneself to just the area that's in pain to address that pain, because almost certainly it will be better addressed by moving away from where the pain is actually emanating from. Anyway, so spending a lot of time on my front here and working a lot, almost exclusively on front side muscles, but I'm not neglecting my back in so doing. I'm killing two birds with one stone, basically. Um, and all the kind of the fast, jerky movements too, are to just try to rip apart those stuck spots, get the tissues to pull apart. And this is a routine or approach, I guess, better way to say it, that works really well. You know, lying on the floor, manipulating oneself over a foam roller, not the most exciting thing to do, perhaps. Um, but if I need something to entertain myself while I do this, I can always listen to podcasts, listen to a YouTube video that I don't need to watch. That's sufficient to just listen to the audio. Um, listen to music, have a chat with someone while I do it. Uh, all things to make the time pass more easily and just make it a little easier to kind of get into it and hang out and try not to rush through. Because I do think the more time spent doing this, to a point, obviously, there's a S curve or whatever. Like I've spent on this particular session here probably about 50 minutes, or maybe even a little closer to an hour doing this. I have to say that's much longer than I normally do this for, but I think I got a lot more worked out than I normally do, and I'm doing it for 5 to 20 minutes, probably a little more typical. Like I said, what took me about 50 here altogether, or a little more. So Same thing here, actually. I'm trying to stretch through the forearm and the chest and stretch out the hip. Even though I'm like bent forward at the front of the hip, I'm still feeling a certain degree of stretch because of the way I'm position, positioning myself. Um, but this is the foam rolling video, and I hope you liked it.